Okay, so this is finished now. I did run into one issue. When you are making Redshift proxies, especially for particles, the object level attributes come into play as well. So because I'm writing on the particles from this level, render object as particles needs to be turned on, otherwise just ditching the geometry and writing like 5 kilobyte files. Okay, so now this is our first step. Now we need to read these guys back so we can set up our render settings, right? So we did copy these lights before from our scene, so you can put your own HDRI as well, um, or just try a day scene. So now the next thing we can do is let's put a geometry node and let's call this one maybe water proxy, and then let's create another one. Let's call it Whitewater proxy, and we're going to create another one. We're going to call it mist proxy. Now, the heavy geometry is here, so not necessarily Missouri needs to be turned into a proxy because it's not that really heavy. So we'll leave it as it is, and then we need the background ocean, and this will be ocean, and that one is not a proxy. Okay, so for Redshift to work with a proxy inside, we need to drop in a Redshift proxy Sop. Just gonna copy this, paste, paste. This one is gonna be live. Go down. So select your proxy nodes and then go into Redshift. Basically now here we're gonna enable and we're gonna point to our proxy file. So in each shot it's a $hip. We have a proxy, and then we have a water proxy, which is called the flip proxy. Okay, so maybe I can change the name to $OS. Then I just need to say this one is a flip proxy, so it finds the cache. Oh, it didn't. I mean, did you wrote it wrong? No. Flip proxy. Yeah, this should be $OS. Okay, it's fine. It's correct. We need to do the rest. So what is this one called? Whitewater proxy. It's called RS proxy. Oh, okay, we gave this one a different name. Bummer. Okay, same. And then the mist. With the mist RS proxy. Yes, we did. It's called spray RS proxy. So spray RS proxy. Same path. Okay. Now I want to be able to adjust the materials. So I'm going to say from object node so I can point them to my materials. And they're not here. So let's copy the materials from my working scene and let's talk about them. So I think I'm going to copy all, but let's see if we need them really. Object, material. So what do I not need? I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. Okay. So our water shader. Okay. There's just a little noise on it to add a little bit of an additional spec detail. Fall off attribute is being exported, so we can render it accordingly. And that's what does that mean? So if now I think if the shader was not attached, there's a possibility that it actually baked out without the RS shader. Okay, let me check RS water. Hey, why am I not seeing it? Oh, it's just called water. Oh, maybe, but it didn't have the shader, so there's a possibility that it ditched the attribute. So I may have to cache the attributes again, but we'll see now. Go out to out context, redshift, IPR, or actually, maybe just to get the things that correct it the first time, you can, if you have the plugin installed, shelves, Redshift, and then you can say click Redshift. It's gonna create the attributes, the nodes for you. So render, we just call this one FX render, for example. And now let's go to object level. We make sure that we have render camera. In all our shots, it will call render camera, so we don't need to. We can just copy this into our other scenes. It is important to set up the paths properly. So that's gonna be pointing to the render. So I'll go here. I'm gonna make sure that I'm pointing to my hip, render, and then the node name. Okay. So I don't need this. I don't need the hip name. I usually don't put the file names, but I do put a version here. Okay, now we can turn on the Redshift tab, enable, I'm not going to enable the denoiser yet, I'm going to enable the motion blur, the formation motion blur as well. Let me think. I'm going to go to advanced, actually, this is going to be turned on as well, and I'm going to make this render. This is going to be a bit noisy render first, but let's see what comes out, because I'm not even sure. I don't want to render everything. I want to always follow a pattern. So what I need to render is, I want to render USS Missouri. I want to render Whitewater proxy. I want to render spray and ocean. But first, let's start with USS Missouri only. And my lights are here. RS light dome, RS light. Now I don't want background to be visible, okay, and alpha to be 0. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to save. Let's see if it's going to explode or it's going to render. Hit render. Okay, our ship is rendering. This looks about right. These are just procedural textures. It's not actually a shader here, but I just kept the colors and then I just apply some procedural colors. Now let's put our proxy and let's see what comes out of it. Okay, we have some geometry here. Good. Obviously, it's not a water shader yet. So we need to make this look like a water. Now let's say I would like you to look like water, which is my water here. And then I have this displacement live shader, which we're going to talk about. Press play. Okay, now it's a bit more watery. Okay, now we need to add, I think, our white water. So let's tag this guy out, set our white water. Let's see what comes out of this. Okay, our white water is here as well. These could be fairly big. We may need to reduce their sizes, but we'll see. Okay, do we have motion blur as well? I am not sure. Let's try this one. Yeah, it looks like we have motion blur. Okay, let's kill. Let's add our mist. Now the mist particle size is a bit tricky. Usually it's best for the following shots if you need to adjust, because it's always going to be a little bit of a struggle to get the particle size right, based on the camera and distance. Sometimes you can get away with bigger particles if you're really far to the camera. Sometimes you cannot. So the advice from now on will be to actually select that. No, I don't. Okay, let me select this again. So I want to run the misery, RS, proxy, ocean, and spray. Did I capture this? Yes. Hit play. It rendered. Now the spray is going to appear. Now it might be coming too big, too small. We'll see. Because this is supposed to be a spray layer, not as much. Oh, we didn't put our water surface. Bravo. That looks cool, I think. It has enough, but we removed our water, so let's add our water as well, which is flip proxy. Okay. Um, Now I'm gonna run this in its own render view, and I do want to turn on. I do want to increase the quality a little bit, and I do want to turn on the denoiser. Okay. Okay. Let's hit render. Let's see what comes out and how long it takes. Of course, the amount of time it takes is going to be different from machine to machine. Oh, we need to turn on the bucket rendering. Okay, I'll say the denoiser is kind of washing out the detail in the front spray quite a lot at these thresholds, so we may need to go better with the threshold. But so far so good. Okay, and if we enable some bloom, add some flare, and some streaks maybe. Okay, there's no need to do the post. All right, so what are we missing? We're missing the extended ocean, right? So let's pin this guy here. So how are we going to do it? So I'm rendering the extended ocean separately, okay? Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm going to create, we have the ocean proxy. We don't call this one ocean proxy. Yes, we have the ocean live. Um, so the way this works is we have our ocean surface and we have a render grid, right? So I'm going to create a render grid, and you need to optimize this. Hopefully you can do it manually, or generally speaking, something that is looking towards the camera. I don't necessarily think we need uh, much optimization, but I'm gonna get this render grid here. Okay, I'm gonna drop this guy here, and I'm gonna make sure that we have enough UVs. Okay, so UV viewport. Let's put a UV project. Okay, and vertices orthographic. I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees. Okay, so it's kind of like creating a massive, super huge UV based on the actual size, oops, of the object. Okay, so it's not like a UV texture that is square, but it's the actual shape. Let's look at from the camera. Let's look at the UV. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm gonna make this scale 200. Nope, and 200 here because that's the scale. I believe that's the last time. That's what we did. Oh, actually, the 500. Okay, that's not exact same size, but we'll probably switch back to 500 to try how it looks. So what's important here is the ocean render live in Redshift properties. We're gonna be rendering this object with our water RS displacement live shader, which is this. So what's happening here? Texture sampler is going to be looking. So instead of writing out an EXR, we know that ocean surface, let's say in here, not here, sorry, in ocean preview has a COP network says bake maps. And if I dive inside, it's going to say, oh, these are the maps I'm actually generating per frame. Okay, this is the scattered one. This is the non-scattered one. Now, I can point, I can tell Houdini to read this image without writing, or Redshift without writing it down to a disk file. So how does that work? Is that you have to supply the full path, which is called with an operator op, this, and then op full path, and then point to the gen displace. Okay, so just follow the path and point it there. Actually, we don't even need a color space for this one, I believe. Now the other one is the same one. This one is the displacement single. So that one is like all layered up. I need to play with this one actually. I'm gonna actually first go like this. And what I'm doing is I'm multiplying that with a noise afterwards to kind of create like a differences between sections, which I guess we can do something like this first to show you what that means. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna go here. No, that's fine. This should give me, when I render, it should just give me a gray render now. Okay, perspective, render. Now I'm gonna duplicate this guy. I'm gonna say ocean render. Okay. Now in the ocean render settings, we can, okay, let me turn this off for now. Go to output. Nope, not output, sorry. Main is the correct camera, ocean render. And the object, I just want to render nothing but my boat. Sorry, nothing but my, where's my ocean life? Ocean life. Okay. Did I put any shader to it yet? No. Okay, so let me just render that one now. Oh, and that's fine. No, actually, this I need to change, so I'm gonna do it from here. Okay, I'm gonna render camera, but this time ocean render. So this should, because I didn't put in a shader, it's just a gray shape, which is normal. Now, if I attach my shader to it, which is water RS displaced live, hit render. Now I'm just seeing that noise pattern. Okay, that's because this is the one that I want to plug in to my displacement multiplier to kind of break up the repetitiveness. So let's do something different now. I'm gonna stop this render. Let's cancel this. Now I'm gonna plug in my water shader, which is very same to the other render. And now I'll have a very reflective surface that is exactly flat. Oh, actually, if I disconnect this, and so what's happening here? Let's continue actually from here. Now I'm reading that value, and then I'm multiplying that with the noise, just the random noise, and then connecting up to texture, which goes into displacement. Okay, so what happens now if I enable displacement in Redshift, which is here? I go to Redshift, tessellation. Okay, let me double check my values. Enable tessellation. This is pretty much default. Now here we can play later. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to limit out frustum tessellation as well, so I don't need it to tessellate so much more than 6. I can keep it 4, but at least leave it the default for now. And what happens now if I hit render? Now it's going to take a little bit longer, obviously, because it's tessellating a live geometry. And now I have some breaking up surface. Okay. Now let's add. Let's go back to the shader and let's plug the shader back in. And now I'm going to get a little water surface. Okay, and then with these noise plugged in here and there. So what happens if I not multiply the noise? Okay, update. Oop, it multiplied with 0. So maybe we do a bypass instead. So what happens if I don't multiply it by noise? Let's go here, text map, hit render. Okay, it's a bit more even everywhere, so we don't want that. Kill it, plug this guy back in. Okay. Now, if you want bigger waves, so there's a couple of things we could do is, oh yeah, so by the way, this is because you saw displacement map is like RGB colors, which means it's a vector displacement. But if you want bigger waves, you can go like this. Okay, so you can just say, hey, take the range, but multiply the range, you get more. Let's close this now. Let's do it one. You could also compress more detail into smaller section by changing the scale, UV scale. So let me copy this to the next one here. Paste, press render. Okay, so let's say maybe 100. Okay, the other file value was 500. I think that's gonna be probably just too wide. Yeah, it's too small. I don't want that. Let's go. I don't know if you go maybe 100 is probably a sweet spot at the moment. Okay, so we have a little bit of an infinite ocean to ourselves. Now, if we need to add more detail, we need to obviously crank up the displacement amount, which is like we can subdivide it more to get more sharper detail. And we could go inside water sim. So we're fetching this value here. And ocean spectra, right? We're using the same ocean spectra. Now, basically, we're going to render the ocean spectra like this for the full sequence. However, we also have our enemy ship. And enemy ship needs to be in the reflection of this guy. And generally speaking, I don't want to re-render everything here. So let's just leave enemy ship here as it is. So let's go render him again. And then he's going to be in here. He's not supposed to be white. So we're missing his textures. Let's sort that out. Houdini rubber enemy. Okay. Where did my render screen go? Okay, let's hit render again. His particles will come after. Oh, we're missing the texture color somehow. Let's have a look at the textures. Oh, yes, I know why. If we go into here and then because these test geometry, you can just go into type properties. I believe we need to extract shaders which are in extra files. Toe low res, toe scale. Okay, so if you select the node, then you can say save as file. Then we can go into project SO. So now that's an asset, right? So and it's gonna all shots. So let's call it toy asset. Let's call this maps. And let's put the low res here and then go into spec and save it here. Now we have access to the textures. We just need to put the textures to, I just need to change it, I guess, from $hip to toy assets maps. So this one is low res. And This one is low res. So you need to, put your path, and that's an emission. I put a little color on the emission. No, this one is not the low res one. This one is supposed to be spec. So I'm going to turn this off because I made his eyes glow, but you don't have to if you don't want. And there's a little bit of a noise edit, so because in scale this is too much, so the noise is a little bit making it like more detail on the um, bumps and stuff to make it look a bit bigger.